on Media and Society this week, we're looking at the coverage of correctional services by the South African media. Well, hello and welcome to Media and Society. I am your host, Naledi Moleo. Of course, this is the show where we look at the intersection between the media and society. And of course, this show would not be complete without your input. So throughout the next hour, feel free to give us a call on the number 011-714-0661 or 0662. So let's get into our discussion for the mornings. What comes to mind when you think about prisons or correctional service centers? For decades, the media has reported, of course, on gangsterism, escapes, corruption as well. And these centers have been seen as a place to harbor criminals until their sentences come to an end. But now and then, we'll see a positive story about these centers and inmates, right? The Nandi Pamakutuman and Thabo Bester saga certainly is a typical example of stories we see in the media that have raised real questions about what actually does it look like inside our correctional service centers. And such stories, of course, are an indication of how people still only have a fairly limited experience of really what goes on within our prison system. So on Media and Society this week, we're doing things differently. Media and Society producer Mosam Kalibi visited 3 correctional service centers to bring you the stories of hope and rehabilitation within our correctional service centers.
Within the concrete walls of Jose Mampuru and Sun City Prison, 2 maximum prisons located in Gauteng, are whirring blow dryers and various hairstyles being prepped. Populated by various inmates eager to get their hair and faces done, as well as their nails perfectly manicured. Jose Mampuru Prison, previously known as Pretoria Central Prison, is situated in the city of Tshwane. Housing over 8,000 inmates, the facility has been offering training and skills to the inmates through the use of their skills development programs, which includes hairdressing, upholstery, textile, and various other training programs. Hlengiwe Hadebe has been incarcerated for 19 years on a 21-year prison sentence. She's one of the hairdressers at Jose Mampuru, who has been using her hairdressing skills as a means to prepare for the job market once she is released.
Keep her busy. As before bengisebenza kitchen, so ukusebenza kwami kitchen angizange ngabona ukuthi kuyi skills. If ungaphumela ngaphandle angeke ungincede because akuna funeral engizosebenza kuyo, akunamshado engizothi ngiyodisha la. So ngadecide ukuza ngapha esalon ukuthi ngizogena more skills. As singama offenders, it's not easy ukuthi sithole umsebenzi ngaphandle. So kumele ukuthi sibe creative sikwazi ukuzenzela ibusiness thina ngokwethu.
Working inside a correctional service center has given many inmates a sense of hope and a sense of normalcy while serving time. She told us why these programs play a crucial role not only in social skills, but also how they allow those incarcerated the ability to grow in order to better their lives once out of prison.
As ubabonile bekhona la, bebe interested ukufunda izinto eziningi like makeup, ukufaka inzipho, and then ukulena monge inwele ukuthi nabo mabephumela ngaphandle bakwazi ukuthi bazenzela something bangasabe uganga futhi.
The responsibility of the Department of Correctional Services is first and foremost correct offending behavior in order to facilitate the rehabilitation process. Offender reintegration programs have become a mainstay for the criminal justice system globally. Dimakazo Dladla, who works as the salon official at Jose Mampuru, says she has seen a change and renewed hope in the inmates through these programs.
It's very, very important because iyabanceda ukuthi babe ne skills when they go outside. They are having something abazoyiproduce, maybe bavula amasaluni, and then it helps them a lot. Because some of them, they do communicate and bana masalun, and we support them, some of them outside. Abana masalun outside, bebasebenza like her.
Lucille Borrell, who is an offender at Sun City, has used her time to help train the inmates in textile and beadwork.
I'm Lucille Borrell. I've been here for a while. Going on 10 years to be exact. I give skills. We have not a company, but we have a little thing called Cozy Den, where we actually train people so that they can have a skill for when they go outside, that they can be self-sufficient. Even if you're going to get a job, maybe you're going to get a job a little bit later, but you can still get an income for yourself. You can still produce. So we train people to do, but we also have where we make things that we sell at Visit. That's how we generate money to train. actually took art at school, but for the last 30 years I haven't been able to use it because I've been too busy being a mom and a businesswoman and doing this and that. So that all actually just came back once I came into KZN. I've been with KZN for a year now. February was the year, so it's going on nearly 2 years. So it all just, like the art just started bubbling back out, but I still had to do the courses though. So in the beginning difficult because you have to sit and you have to concentrate, and then afterwards it becomes relaxing. We make necklaces, we make earrings, we make bracelets. The girls all love that one. So things are changing. We now just introduced stencil work.
Yasmin Jacobs, also one of the trainers at the facility, mentioned that many women who partake in learning textile and beadwork come without any knowledge of how to sew.
The type of skills that we do, what I give them the skill of basic sewing and advanced sewing. If you don't know anything about the machine, I put you behind the machine, I make you comfortable, I make it like you're driving a car on a long cruise, and you start to get the feel of the machine.
Her sole duty is aimed at providing women with entry-level sewing and beading training. The trainees are provided with tangible sewing skills, allowing them to obtain employment.
It inspires me a lot because there's a lot we can do outside with it, you understand? And if you have a sponsor, maybe someone can sponsor your machine or something, or material, small things like that, or cotton, then you can do sewing, like basic sewing, sewing with the hands and doing things like that. So you have something to wake up for. Like I have a job to go do when I go outside.
Skill development programs at correctional facilities have a major influence on whether ex-offenders find themselves in the same circumstances that potentially contributed to their illegal activities in the first place. This is why it is crucial to ensure that the necessary steps and procedures are followed to ensure that they are well prepared ahead of their reintegration into society. Musam Khalipi for SABC News.
So let's take the discussion forward, right, around just how the media covers what really goes on inside our correctional centers. And of course, we're taking your call throughout this hour. Feel free to give us a call on 011-714-0661 or 0662. We will be speaking to Singabako Ngumalo, who's the spokesperson for the Correctional Services Department. But in studio, we welcome Mr. Welcome Vitboy, who was only 12 years old when he became a member of the 28s gang, and at the age of 17 was arrested at Pollsmoor Prison. We're also joined by Dr. Sfiso Zondo, who is the head of communication at the University of Johannesburg. Gentlemen, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning, Naledi, and thank you for having us, and good morning to your viewers.
Really good to have you with us. Doctor, I'm going to start with you because we're looking at that package. And the reason why we're having this discussion is because when we saw Dr. Nandi Pamakutumana appearing in court, social media said, how does she look so good? You know, why is her nails done? How is how was her hair done? And it really brought about some interesting conversations around what actually goes on inside our prisons, and are we telling the right stories? I mean, are we, in your view, telling the right stories about what's actually going on inside our correctional centers?
I think having seen the Nandi Pamagudmane and Thabo Bester story, I mean, it just reminded us how in South Africa we tend to focus on stories that lead when they bleed, all right? And we don't necessarily get to see the positive things that happen within our correctional facilities in South Africa. And that then shows us a situation where we miss important things that are seeking to correct behaviors within our correctional facilities in South Africa. And we as the media professionals, and I think we are missing the opportunity to show the positives that are happening in there. And I mean, that explains why when Nandipa, for example, appears on television in court, looks amazing.
Yeah.
It's because of the things that are happening inside, and we're not giving access to such stories.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I mean, you served time at Pollsmoor Prison. I think generally in South Africa, when we hear of Pollsmoor Prison, it certainly is one of the more frightening prisons in terms of its reputation, right? And I'm actually interested in hearing, just as you look at coverage of what actually goes on inside Pollsmoor Prison and what it actually is on the inside, do you find that there's the media actually understands what's going on inside there?
I think Pollsmoor is rated as one of the 5 most deadliest prisons in the world. It is a very dangerous place to be in. I always tell young people that that is not a place that you want to be in. But there are other things that happen. You know, correctional services stays true to its word of saying we correct the behavior of the offender. I mean, I'm a product of correctional services. I studied at UNISA while I was in prison. I did my teacher's qualification while in there. But I was also part of the gangs So it's that type of situation of you have to first learn to survive the place. And once you understand how to survive prison, you are then afforded an opportunity to say, do you want to continue living a life of crime?
Yeah.
Or do you want to change and become something else? And for me, that was the gift that I was given, to say that in order for me to become a better man, to become a better father, to become a better role model, I needed to let go of a life of crime, and I chose education as my way of stepping out of a life of crime.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because the reality is, and I said this in the intro as well, that it was at 12 years old that you joined the 28s gang, right? So,
Exactly.
I mean, that's a very tender age to be joining a very dangerous gang in the Western Cape. So one would hope that when you enter the prison system, that there's real work to try and rehabilitate a young man that obviously has seen quite a lot. I mean, talk to us about what that process looked like of that rehabilitation. 17 years old, you entered the Pollsmoor prison. What's the first thing that you really needed to make sense of at that time?
I think for me it was the reason why I joined the gangs in the first place was I wanted to belong, sense of belonging. I really didn't have a father figure. My father was present but unavailable. So for me, it was that thing of yearning to belong somewhere, and the gangs gave me that. Even in prison, when I entered, not knowing that street gangs and prison gangs are two separate entities. You know, the numbers and the street gangs are two different things. And the fear that I had when I entered that place, being asked who I am, and realizing that my name is welcome, but in prison, I'm not welcome. I'm just a number. You know, and having to let go of my own identity, not understanding that my identity actually means a lot to me. And so it was that type of fear being in prison. And when I joined the gangs in prison and becoming part of the system and becoming part of the numbers gang, I had to do things that I myself was not proud of. But later on, as I said, when I was approached by correctional officers, that says, but if you can step into a position of leadership, if you can lead a gang within prison, imagine what you can do with those leadership abilities if you translate them into something positive. And that was the opportunity for me to say, step out of the numbers gang and become a leader in something else.
Yeah. You know, it actually reminds me a little bit of what a lot of psychologists will say is that the troublemaker in the classroom is generally actually quite the leader because they're able to influence people. What were the rehabilitation programs that you did see within prisons that worked, particularly at Pollsmoor Prison? Talk to us about those. I mean, earlier we were showing, you know, the hair salons and the skills development. Some of the ones that stand out for you.
The one that stands out greatly for me was I needed to get to know who I was first. You know, as when you commit crime and you live a life of a criminal, you tend to think that what you do is correct because you want to survive. You don't understand the impact your crime has on other people. That the fact that when you've hurt or you've taken a life of someone, that was a breadwinner, that was a father, that was a mother, that was a brother, that was a sister. So one of the most important programs that stands out for me was the Restorative Justice Program. A program really made me understand who I was as an individual, as a person.
Yeah.
That also gave me back my identity.
Is this now you connecting with the victims?
Exactly, that's me now understanding that, because I needed to understand the depth of my crime. And I also needed to understand that my crime was committed because I was hurting. And they say that hurt people hurt people.
Yeah.
And I needed to understand that I needed to be unhurt. And then start working on my own rehabilitation. That is where restorative justice then opened doors for me. Another program that was also very, very proficient for me that helped me a lot was, being taught carpentry, being taught plumbing. Those were soft, those were skills, hard skills that if you leave prison, are you able to then work with your hands and have the skill to do those things. But the thing that I said, what I chose predominantly was the teaching.
Yeah.
I loved teaching. I loved standing in front of a class and giving guidance. And when I, did my qualification at UNISA, it is where correctional services then gave me an opportunity to say, okay, cool, start a school.
Yes.
And then that's what we did.
That's incredible. It's an incredible story, and I think we need to be telling more of these kinds of stories. Doctor, I'm going to come back to you, Dr. Zondo, because I worry sometimes that what the media does in talking about correctional services, and not just perhaps news media, I'm talking about where we're talking about entertainment value media as well.
Yes.
That there's a sense that we almost romanticize prison, right? And for a young teenage boy who's watching some of these things that we put on screen, there's a sense that we say, it's the hard, tough men that are in prison, and that's who you want to be.
You see, now we need to then look at the culture that we have in our society. How do we speak about crime? How do we try and deal with issues of crime in society? I mean, South Africa has this culture of shaming crime. Right? You need to be ashamed of yourself if you are committing a criminal act. And that is used as a way of deterring people from engaging in criminal activities, right? So that is how the society is. But now, how we deal with correcting criminal behavior is very complex in our country. So if you look at the rate of recidivism, about 90% of the people that were once incarcerated tend to reoffend and then go back to prison. So out of 10 people that were incarcerated, 9 will
go
reoffend.
back.
All right? But why is that the case? Now we then need to look at how do we reintegrate people that we once removed from society for committing crime. How are they then reintegrated into our society? Do they feel welcomed when they come back to society? Perhaps if they don't feel welcome, then as Welcome said earlier on, the criminal gangs are waiting to make them feel welcome again. And as a result, they go back. Right? But so now programs that seek to show how people can change their lives after living a life of crime are not shown in the media. And that is precisely because we've got this culture of shaming crime or shaming offenders or even ex-offenders. I mean, this is, you even see it in how after you have been in prison for however long, you are applying for a job and then they will ask you if you've got a criminal record. That is also a way of saying, well, if you have committed crime, there is stigma that is attached to being an ex-convict. And because of that stigmatization, you will find yourself being excluded in certain spaces. And how the media then reports on issues of the correctional services, it is also aligned to that culture of shaming, that culture of exclusion. And for us to encourage you not to engage in criminal activities, we'll then focus on stories that make the correctional service facilities seem dangerous, right? So that it will deter you. But of course, that is, we need to deter people from engaging in criminal activities, of course.
Yes.
All right? But there are also positive things that happen in that space. So we also need to focus on the correctional aspect of it. And that is what I think we are missing. I mean, Welcome Story is one of the most positive ones, but we are not getting to see such stories.
Yeah. I want to, can I ask you that same question though and say, you know, as a young man growing up as a teenage boy, when you watched, you know, on television, whether it be Yizo when you were seeing prison scenes or anything that really spoke to what really goes on inside prisons, was there a sense from yourself and your peers, right, that if I make it to prison, then I'm that guy?
No, definitely. I mean,
does the media make it aspirational to
the
some
media,
extent?
the media does, in a way, you know, taint a little bit of it. They taint the picture. We were talking, me and the doc, before we entered here, and we talked about the Naledi and Bester situation, especially right now. I work with young people, and when they show Naledi or they show Thabo wearing his Gucci or Versace, and the media has this tendency to say he's wearing a 25,000 Rand t-shirt. And then everybody's focus goes to the 25,000 Rand t-shirt. Now when I sit with young people and they say to me, but Welcome, he's wearing a 25,000 Rand t-shirt, I want to be Thabo Bester. But they do not understand what Thabo Bester has done. So we move away as a country from the actual crime and we glorify the person that commits the crime. So we do not think of the impact it causes the people that got hurt in the process of him obtaining the 25,000 Rand t-shirt. So that's the thing that the media sometimes gets a little bit lost in. Social media as well. We see Naledi stepping on in court, smiling, and the people ask, she has a daughter. How does she feel as a mother? You know, are these the pertinent questions that we're asking? I mean, as a father myself, I changed my life in prison because I had this notion that if I were to be a father one day, what kind of father do I want to be to a girl child?
Yeah. Oh.
And today I have a girl child. And when I look at her, I realize that if my daughter had to be asked, tell us about your father, what type of picture would she want to paint about her father? And would it be one that she would be happy? Or would it be one that the society or the community would want to glorify? I'm not for that part. I'm for part of saying that, yes, prison is not a place that I would like any young person to go to. But however, when they do land up there, they have an option to change their lives for the better.
Yeah.
And they can choose that by stepping out of that behavior of being criminals and letting go of that and saying, I want to choose something positive.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, we're going to continue this conversation, and then we're also going to be speaking to Singabakho Nxumalo, spokesperson for Correctional Services. Welcome back. We continue our discussion about how the media really portrays what really goes on within our prisons and correctional service centers. And although the National Development Plan envisages that offenders should be released and successfully reintegrated into society, the effectiveness of this process largely really depends on the quality of programs that offenders receive while incarcerated. Recognizing, of course, the importance of this, the department plays a vital role in rehabilitating offenders and reducing the likelihood of them re-offending by conducting proper assessments and informing them about the programs and interventions that are available within their facilities. Let's take a look at this package.
Gone are the days where imprisonment in the country was harsh prisoner labor in order to rehabilitate them. Through its skills development program, the Department of Correctional Services has been playing its part in ensuring that training is provided to prisoners in order for them to have some form of skill once they are released. Many prisoners have used their training as a tool to cope with the day-to-day struggles of being in prison. Many have been incarcerated for years, and being part of the program has not only helped with garnering skills, but has also given them something to look forward to when they are outside the prison walls.
And if you get a box back 2016, trial 2016, 2017. Was 12 years, and only 6 years. Kule 6 years in the end, 1 year, 8 months, in cabinet making. So, Matimas made a trade test, so to show COVID-19, and so Pinokuti Savuyanga, Mangena go upholstery. Ukufunda kwami iskill la ngaphakathi ufuna ukuthi ube nentshisakalelo uyithande into ungayenzi just because of uyenza ngokuthi ufuna ukuya ngaphandle ufike ngaphandle ungasayisebenzisi. So mina ukuphumeni kwami ngiyovula i-workshop but ngiyiqala ekhaya as time goes on ilangza umasipala and then ngicele
on a daily basis, inmates are busy at the various workshops at Kgosi Mampuru in central Pretoria. The workshops are separated into different workstations for the bakery, woodwork, textile and steel work, among others. Working at the workshops has become somewhat of a job for most of the inmates who arrive at the crack of dawn, working through the early afternoon.
Well, we keep them busy with different products. It's products for our own department and also products for other state departments. And we try our best to train these guys and to get the best products out of this workshop, which I think that the offenders is good in. The skill that we learn them, they are very good in. You must remember, when this offender came to prison, our duty is to see that this offender do something with his life and to send him out to the community outside. We must give this offender something, and that's why we train these offenders in a trade like cabinet making, also spray painting, whereby we also give them a certificate for the period that they've been here. After that, after the 3 years, they can do a qualification, get a national qualification, a trade certificate. And we also by far, we try to give this offender also tools that he can also use outside when he goes outside to do something for himself. Feel that they learn here, they definitely use it outside. And you can see for yourself in this time of rehabilitation in the workshop that this offender is committed. So he wants to do something with his life. He doesn't want to come back to prison.
It is behind these walls that many inmates learn how to develop their skills through the rigorous training received. The workshop Steel Station makes palisade fences, security equipment, chairs, beds that are used within the prison walls. At the Boksburg Correctional Services Center, east of Johannesburg, steel is being melted and fences are being molded by inmates hard at work at the steel workshop. While inmates learn how to bake or build, their productivity also enables the correctional center to save millions per year.
We are producing for other sister departments like National Defence Force, Sanitation. We are producing for Department of Education and all these other SAPS and all those other departments, yes. The selection process is about interviewing the offenders. We have to interview them and check what is it that they know, what is it that they've acquired, let's say from outside, what education level do they have, because some of them you might find they cannot read and write, so it's going to be a problem, you know, for them to catch up with doing the cutting, reading the cutting list and so on. So they have to go through a certain program of, let's say, ABET, so that they can be able to read, measure, and do all the, you know, the basic things when it comes to production. I think yes, there is a positive results where you find inmates who have been here at the workshop, who have trained here, and who even qualified to get their Red Seal certificates. So, and when they go out, you find they are working for themselves. Some of them are getting employed. It's just that we as production workshop, we are working with community corrections who are the ones who are, you know, monitoring them, because we don't monitor as the workshop, we just give skills. But community corrections goes out and further to, you know, to monitor them forward to see whatever they do, and yeah. So we get positive results of offenders who have been offenders here, who have qualified here, and who goes out and do something for themselves.
The Skills Development Program is a critical component of the offender rehabilitation strategy within the Department of Correctional Services. The goal of the program is to provide offenders access to occupation. For SABC News, I am Musa Mkalipi.
Certainly an interesting look inside the Boksburg prison as well as the Kgosi Mampuru Correctional Center. But we're going to speak now with Mr. Singabako Nxumalo, who's the spokesperson for the Correctional Services Department. Mr. Nxumalo, a good morning to you. Thank you so much for giving us your time on a Sunday morning.
Good morning, and thank you for having us.
No, really good to have you with us. I imagine that your interactions with the media over the past few months have been incredibly difficult, considering what the Thabo Bester saga really has done to taint the, you know, to paint the work of correctional services. I mean, talk to me about how difficult that has been to really shed a light as to what our prisons actually look like.
I think what becomes critical is to say, what are these correctional facilities meant for? What is happening inside there? How do you deal with disturbances? But equally so, how do you keep your programs running focused so that you can have tangible results? And difficult issues at times, you know, as they may be, but I think it's part and parcel of the work that we need to do to say, when you have security breaches, you ought to deal with them and make it a point that you don't suffer the same moving forward. But push your programs, because that's what matters the most. You have an inmate population of over 154,000. Those people, you know, are focused. They will want to change their lives. Therefore, you cannot just dump them because one or two have done things which are embarrassing. Deal with those, yet assist as much as possible the ones who are prepared. It has been our quest, you know, to say, let us take the media and other institutions inside of our facilities. Those big walls could be intimidating. The fence is the gate. But there is nothing that says you can't have media, our partners, stakeholders going inside there. Everyone wants inmates to talk for themselves. And I think that story becomes even much more powerful because it's someone who's saying, look, I did whatever that I did which was wrong, but ever since I came here, I've since realized that there is more into life and I've got an opportunity to change my life for the better. And I think what we've seen now is a testimony to that, where someone is saying, look, I came here even without any formal education, but look at the skills that I've acquired. And post-incarceration, I'm looking forward to a life where I can make a positive contribution.
Yeah. And talk to me about just when you, we talked a little bit earlier with Mr. Welcome Witbooi about just how even in storytelling, so I'm not talking about necessarily news, but in storytelling, in the series and movies that we watch about South African prisons, is there a sense in your view that we almost, depict our prisons as places for hardened men that almost attract young men to want to be there?
Unfortunately, there is this notion, I don't know where it emanated from, where people say, prison stories sell. People tend to follow them the most. They love watching them. Unfortunately, the damage is much bigger because other people may look into it and say, oh, can I try that? And before they realize they've committed so much trouble, and once they're inside, they will say, but hang on, if perhaps I had another opportunity or to think differently, perhaps I wouldn't have, done what I've just committed. And you hear people saying that correctional facilities are five-star hotels. Yet ask just one inmate who's, in the facility or an ex-inmate. They will tell you that that is rubbish. It's nonsense. It is not nice having your rights limited. You are unable to do whatever that you want whenever you want. That freedom, when you are outside, you may think, nothing. You realize once you're inside a correctional facility that it means a lot. So at times, I think there is something that could be done in terms of reporting about activities or things happening in correctional facilities. When there's bad, yes, we need to talk about it. But equally so, they're good so that we can even assist others to say, you don't have to be on the wrong side of the law for you to gain a skill. You are able to gain that skill, having gone through the proper channels and acquired whatever skill that you needed to. But those who are with us, let us show how much they fight, how much they push themselves, and how much they value that second chance. Yeah. If you have inmates who are able to secure 7 distinctions for their matric, it does indicate to you that there's potential here, this person was distracted, and these are stories that we need to tell. Yeah.
Talk to me about whether or not we actually are doing enough, though, to deal with reoffending. I mean, Dr. Zondo talked about this earlier and said, out of 10 offenders, 10 that are released, 9 are likely to find themselves back in the correctional center. I mean, is there a role that you think media certainly can be playing to, I suppose, soften that number?
When it comes to reoffending, perhaps the focus should be on the type of support that has to be given to people who have been released or placed out on parole. More often, we try not to discuss those factors. What would really drive someone who's been released is saying, look, I've got no support, I've got no food to eat, couples have been, locked for me, what am I supposed to do? And then you can have, that media element in saying, look, this person committed a crime, served the time, is now out. How best can we assist ex-inmates, parolees, and professionals so that they remain focused and the skill that they've acquired was incarcerated, they're then able to utilize it either in a business or employment or even assisting general members of the community about teaching them that particular skill. So there's a lot that can be done in that particular aspect rather than simply focusing on saying this person was released just 4 months ago, look at him now, he has reoffended. I think it's all about how best we then go after these people to say, ever since you were released, how do you find everything outside? Is there an area perhaps where you need assistance or support? And I think that will then take us, a step further, rather than simply focusing on how many people have reoffended. As much as we need to talk about it, but we need to extend it beyond that. So that as a country we can say the 26 billion that the state has invested in correctional services, they are indeed returned.
Yeah. Well, stay with us, Singabako, because we're going to wrap it up and bring in Dr. Zondo as well as Mr. Vitbo as well as we continue this conversation. And we're taking your calls. What do you make of how the media really covers what goes on inside our correctional centers? Give us a call on 011-714-0661. We're back in a moment.
Mornings at Bavianspoort Prison, located in Pretoria, start off with the milking of cows, which will later be consumed by the inmates at the center, as well as other prisons which might be in need. Over the years, millions of kilograms of vegetables, fruit and meat have been produced by inmates at correctional center farms and abattoirs. In 2021, Minister of Correctional Services Ronald Lamula revealed that by utilizing offender labor, the department has managed to produce food for inmates and generate revenue from its production workshops. Bavianspoort Farm, together with its bakery, has enabled the department to be self-sufficient, while also enabling the inmates to garner skills in farming and various other skills through its development programs.
It's of great importance because, as you know, agriculture is one of the economical stream. So, and with the unemployment rate outside, it is important that our offenders participate in these activities so that they can obtain a skill that they can use it outside after their release. And what I can say is that I think the department, because of this, it will create an opportunity for offenders to come and participate in these activities so that when they go out, they are well equipped. We do have a number of offenders which are having more interest in participating in these activities. Remember, most of the offenders are coming from the areas where they've never been exposed to agriculture. So immediately they participate, then they develop this passion and the love on it. And in my experience in the engagement with the offenders, if you ask them, they will even ask you when they're about to be released, that can you link me with any farmer outside there that you know, that I can continue with what I've started in the department.
Prison farms operate in much the same manner as any other commercial farming enterprise. However, they are multifaceted, with various produce being farmed in one facility, meaning that each farm may have some or all of the following: an abattoir, beef production, dairy production, piggery and small stock. Heinrich has been serving time at the Bavianspoort Correctional Facility. He has been with the piggery located on the grounds. He says working there has been a good experience, which has enabled him to create a better living experience while serving time.
I was arrested in Eastland, so I was first in Central, so I came to Bavians. It was much better to come this side. They said there's work here, so that's why I came here to work. I've learned a lot about the pigs, how they inject the pigs, take the tooth out, cut the tails off, and to go and give them food. That's very good, because you must give the mothers special foods, the children must get special food. I want to learn more, so when I get out, that I can do something for myself and for my family. I want to get papers to get a good job outside.
Tembi Nkosi, also an inmate at Bavianspoort, works in the fields where fruit and vegetables form part of what has been farmed.
Bavianspoort ngifike 2021 ngoMarch. Ngisuka eJohannesburg prison eSun City. eSun City, I'm sure 9 years. I'm sure almost 6 years. Ashuthi ngokwala ijele mawuvuka ekseni uyavuka uyageza ulindele amaphoyisa bazokulanda labasebenza la kulespan sebathatha amathikithi ethu bese siyaphuma zosebenza la njengoba ubona kunje siyaplanta siyakhulisa siharvest nalamanye amajele and then sekwala ekhaya ke lesikudla.
Also in Tshwane, the smell of freshly baked bread fills the air at the Mampuru Prison Bakery, where inmates start working from as early as 6 a.m. The bread is then distributed to inmates in the prison as well as other facilities around the province.
Ukuthi ngicabanga ukuthi uyosebenza e-bakery because mina ngifunda bengifuna ukuthi ngibe neskill sokuthi mangiphuma la ejele kube nento ezongiphilisa ngaphandle. Yes, I'm hopeful because there is someone who are busy to look me for a place where I can go to make a bread and all that stuff. If ngithole umuntu ozongisupport ukuthi angithengele iflour, amafutha, yeast, nayo yonke into, amaphensi, ngizophumelela because wonke umuntu la ekhaya eMzansi udla isinkwa every day. Ayikholanga le umuntu angadli isinkwa.
In 2012, Minister of Correctional Services Ronald Lamula said that self-sufficiency aims to save taxpayers' money and position the Department of Correctional Services to have a restorative impact in communities.
We are baking for the following centers presently: Attersville, Central, and Odi. Per day we are baking plus minus 1,600 to 1,700. It depends quantity needed by the centers every day. How many admissions, and then the quantity we bake every day, it won't be stable because there is release, there is admission. That is all. I like them to, when they are outside, to go on with baking of bread, because as you know outside, for example, there is this thing, bunny chows, paddle, you know it. Yeah, you can make plenty of money. They can go on with this baking, and then maybe even biscuits or cakes. I wish them good luck when they are outside.
He announced that the estimated cost savings as a result of implementing self-sufficiency initiatives in the department amount to 163 million rands, while also mentioning that this initiative will also skill the inmates with functional skills and increase production capacity. Musam Kalipi for SABC News.
Very interesting. Give us a call, 011-714-0661 or 0662. We're talking about how the media actually covers what really goes on inside our correctional centers. Of course, so we're still in conversation with Dr. Zondo, Mr. Welcome Vitbo, as well as Singabako Ngumalo, who's spokesperson for the Department of Correctional Services. Dr. Zondo, do we know this? I mean, did you know this?
Actually, this is information that we don't often see on the media. But as I was watching, I was actually thinking about a point that my learned colleague online raised. So in reporting about these positive things that happen within our correctional services facilities, and of course they are in keeping with the idea of rehabilitating people, there's a balancing act, of course, that needs to come in as well. We need to show these positive stories. We need to show these positive initiatives. But we also need to ask ourselves, who are we producing these stories for? Are they mainly for the people outside of the system, or are they for inmates? Because if we are producing them for people outside of the system, we also need to be careful so as to not romanticize it. Make it look as if being in prison could be an option, could be an alternative, that you could consider given the levels of unemployment in the country. Well, you know what? I'm unemployed. I don't have a job. Let me go to prison. At least I'll learn a skill. I'll learn a skill and I'll get that stipend. So we do not want to create a situation where it looks nice that I can be arrested, of course, but there's something positive inside. But we also don't want to vilify that system in such a way that we end up missing the positive things that happen. So it's that balancing.
No, I think we all can agree with that 100%, that there has to be that being responsible in telling the stories. But there's something to be said about also telling the rehabilitation that does actually take place. Because I was saying as well as we were watching that package, Mr. Vitbo, is that I think for a lot of South Africans, we imagine prison as a place where, people are clumped into a cell and there's, a singing and of struggle songs, if you will, and songs of missing home. But, we don't see this. And you were saying, well, it depends which prison you're at.
Exactly. So I also think that in order to answer the doctor's one in the sense of saying there is a system in place that Correctional Services has implemented that makes people understand that there is a balance. There's, as we say, there's C-max, there's maximum, there's medium, and there's a minimum. So when you go to prison, when I went to prison at the age of 17, I was sent to a maximum. I was sentenced to 23 years in prison. So I didn't start at a medium prison where I was afforded an opportunity to do these soft skills. I had to start where I needed to understand the consequences of my crime. That is where I had to go to that hard place to see that, hey, and I had to understand that this is your master. So the environment was built in such a way to make me understand that I needed to take responsibility and accountability for my actions. And as I matured and I went through the process of being in prison, I started to understand. Now that I've been given, for instance, I was in an A group. An A group is where you can have contact visit. I started as a C group, where it was behind the glass, 15 minutes, you know. And then as I started doing good in prison and started to understand and attending programs and kind of like working on myself, I became a B group, I became an A group. So therefore, I was given opportunity. So there is that balancing act of saying that you go to prison, but there's choices and consequences.
Yes.
And we always teach young people that there's consequences to doing something wrong, so therefore you don't want to go there.
Yeah.
But we also want to tell, and this is what we also teach other offenders, because as Doctor said, there is a high rate of reoffending that happens, and as our spokesperson says, it's because there's not always that type of support outside for offenders given.
Yeah.
You know, people, as we say, stigma, discrimination and all of that, but not understanding. Hence, it is important to also make the community aware of what this person has done. I mean, I've been out of prison now for almost 11 years, and I'm happy. I mean, 11 years out of prison.
So talk to me about what that would look like, though, when we say we need to talk to the community that's receiving them. I mean, what's the role that you want to see media then play there?
I think media needs to, for instance, like I said, it mustn't be a situation of glamorizing.
Yes.
You know, we had past few days, we had one of the drug dealer dying, something Agliotti or whatever, died. And the way we spoke about him as if he was a community leader. But he was a drug dealer. You know, he was killing people. What we need to realize is that people need to be, if we speak more of offenders coming out to really make a change. I mean, I'm an ambassador for correctional services, for say. I mean, I can speak on behalf of correctional services because I've been out of prison for 11 years, you know, and that is a success. It's their success, not just my own, but it's also their success.
Yeah.
So for me, I feel like we need to kind of like give credit where credit is due. I'm not saying that we do not have bad apples in correctional services. I do not say that we do not have bad apples within offenders, but we need to not, as our spokesperson says, focus only on those bad apples, but also focus on those ones that are doing good things, that are really pushing out there, or Sihle Shabalala, guys that are teaching kids to dance. We've got Karina Anderson from the Smiling One Foundation that helps offenders understand and take responsibility for their lives. We've got Welcome Witboy that teaches young people not to go to prison. So we need to kind of like give them credit where credit is due.
Yeah. Just quickly as we wrap up, and I'm out of time here, Mr. Nxumalo, but I want to give the last bite to you, right? I think a call to action to media practitioners about really how we responsibly tell the story of what goes on inside correctional services. I mean, Mr. Witboy's talked about, no, well, you do need to tell people that this neo-masa, as he says, but you also need to tell the story of the rehabilitation. Your call to action for media practitioners across the board.
Look, we have a lot of content that we are able to package for different mediums and different platforms. And we also work with different institutions, be it in the literacy field, through your Funda Mzansi, where we work with Department of Sport, Arts and Culture, basic education, even filmmakers, they do come into our space. But more often some will just come with an idea to say, how quickly can I make money and be rich? Whereas we want something which is sustainable. And we need those filmmakers. We need people who are able to tell stories to say, come, let us engage and let us work together. Our intention is not about, let us see how best we can make money out of that, but let us see how best we can take public education to another level so that more people are able, you know, to really feel what correctional services is all about. Yes, when we do bad, leisure, but equally so, where we do good, support us. So as a department, our doors are always open. We always say, let us work together. Where perhaps, finances could be an issue, let's see how best we can work around that. But as a department, there is more than enough content for everyone who's specializing in whatever field, whatever platform to say, come, let's work together, and let us demonstrate to South Africans that a second chance is possible. We have inmates who have done that, and through our self-sufficiency and sustainability framework, we have turned the tide. What you've seen throughout this morning is out of that to say, with the 21 farms that we have,
right,
40 workshops that we have, how best can you change the life of inmates?
Okay. Yeah. Mr. Ngumalo, I think the take home there certainly is that, particularly for media practitioners, the role of public education around all of those facets. Thank you so much for speaking to us. Ngabakho Ngumalo, of course, is the spokesperson for the Correctional Services Department. Thanks as well to Dr. Sfiso Zondo, who's the head of the School of Communication at the University of Johannesburg. Mr. Welcome Witbooi, an absolute thought leader, I think. Thank you so much for your time. An absolute pleasure. We look forward to spending time with you again next week, Sunday. Have yourselves a great afternoon.